Greetings, Earthlings! Today is Thursday, April 4th, episode 11 of Season 2. We got a jam-packed digital download today full of video games, music, and movies. We're gonna talk a little bit about last episode's question of the day, and then we're gonna get into today's topic, which is the life cycle of a music genre. Mainly hip-hop and rock and roll. So tune in, nerd out, and soak up all this nerd drip on today's episode of Urban Nerd Weekly.
Bitch, this, that, he style. Hey, it's your boy Spaceship, man. I got a new podcast out I want y'all to subscribe to, bruh. It's called Urban Nerd Weekly, available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play Music. My
back up in this shit. I just like some couple beats. I'm about to hit the stick, so go and follow me on Twitch. Now watch me crank that urban. Now watch me crank that urban. Watch me crank that urban. Now watch me crank that urban.
Yeah, boy. Flavor voice. Let me do it right. Yeah, boy. I knew I could do it. Thank you. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, man, welcome to another illustrious episode of Urban Nerd Weekly, man. I'm glad y'all tuning in and nerding out with your boy. First things first, I'd like to remind you guys to follow me on all the social media majors and all the minors if you want to do that as well, because I got a profile on just about everything, but you know how we got to do on us content creators got to do. Follow me on the main three, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Here, SPAYCEWZHERE.com. Let's get straight to business, man. On today's digital download, we got quite a few little titles to be dropping off on y'all. First off, in the video game arena, a game I slick been anticipating, can't wait to play a little bit. Super Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission. That will be available tomorrow on April 5th on Switch and PC. Movie-wise, we got Pet Sematary, Best of Enemies, and of course, y'all heard me talk about this movie a couple of weeks ago. Y'all already know I'm going to see Shazam, who I'm not letting off the gas on this shit, was the first Captain Marvel. I'm just fucking saying. Like, argue all you want. I'm sticking with that shit. Anyway, all those movies also available tomorrow. I mean, not available. Well, probably available fucking if you want to steal it. But all those movies do hit theaters tomorrow, April 5th as well. Music-wise, we got my guy Khaled, who did the song Young, Dumb, and Broke. He had that song. He got his album Free Spirit dropping tomorrow. And that's all we got for today's digital download. Now I want to give you guys a quick reminder to hit up the website spacewashere.com, SPAYCEWZHERE.com. Make sure you guys join the email list so that way every time I hit y'all with a blog post, because I do a couple of blog posts a week, just some thoughts rolling around in the noggin that's a little too long for the social media sites, and plus I also give you guys update. Like, if you don't follow the show all that well, you don't have one of those, you're not really in the podcast, but you're digging the show, you can always just join the email list on the website, and that way when I hit you guys once a week with a blog post, and it'll have both episodes from that week in it. Or if there's bonus episodes that week, of course those will be in their blog post as well. Plus you guys get access to all my exclusive content that'll be dropping soon, and especially when I get to the point of when I'm doing like a lot of shows and stuff, you guys will be able to have access to discount and or free tickets, merch, all kind of good stuff. But you guys got to go ahead and get on the ground floor, man. Like, I'm telling you, when y'all start seeing people with all this free shit, y'all gonna be like, oh man, I wish I got on the main list. Y'all better do that shit now, man. I'm telling you. SpaceWasHere.com. Now, last episode, we talked about April Fool's Day because, of course, it was the episode after April Fool's Day. And as a comedian, you guys know, you could probably just assume that, it's a nice little holiday for me. And when I was a kid, it was a nice little fun prankster holiday. But then you get older, you see somebody get thrown in a pool with their cell phone in their pocket, and you be like, you know what? I would stab somebody if they did that to me. Maybe I should think twice about these things. And the question was, and the question still is, because I got a couple of responses, but I'm waiting on that. I'm waiting on that story. I know it's out there. Please. You know what I'm saying? If I gotta make this the question of the day every day until I get that 5 story, I'm gonna do it. Please tell me if you were ever a part of a practical joke or a prank that just went a little too far. Now, on to today's topic, the life cycle of a music genre. Now, when I talk about the life cycle of a music genre, if you ever notice, like if you're a fan of music the way that I am, you'll kind of notice that there's these different phases that almost every genre goes through before it kind of sits in the pocket of where it's going to be as far as which genre is kind of like the biggest, or, once it just, like, basically if a genre was a person, once it gets old enough to figure out who it is, you know what I mean? Like, it's like music genres have a life cycle, in my opinion, they have a life cycle like a person almost. Like in the beginning, it's young and, it's just this new thing. It's fresh. It's it doesn't even matter, like, how good it sounds. It's just the fact that it's a different sound. It's brand new, never before seen. It's awesome. Just like think about any movie when you look at like the origins of hip hop or the document, like if you know the history, or rock and roll, definitely jazz, and lots of genres, doo-wop, like lots and lots of music genres. If you notice, they have this kind of cycle. And the reason I brought this up is because I'm a big fan of hip-hop music, and with hip-hop being one of the younger music genres, especially if you're considering out of the major mainstream sellers, it is the youngest. It's kind of like the America of the music genres. Like, it's the young, it's young, and it's reckless, and it's, it's still fresh and new. And right now there's a lot of gripping and griping, in the hip hop community about the state of things, as it kind of always is. But it's the same thing that happens in most genres. If you talk to anybody that's well knowledged about that genre or music in general, like right now we're at a point in hip hop where we have a lot of very, very not only young acts, but they're also acts that we're seeing them prematurely. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, I'm gonna talk about this, like where hip hop is right now for a second, and then I'm gonna segue in explaining like how that's kind of like related to another well-known genre, and then I'm gonna expand that into like how interconnected that is with the different genres of music. So first, right now, and if you're not like a hip hop fan, I'll just give you the lowdown because I was gonna fucking say it anyway. But right now we're at a state of hip hop where a lot of artists or acts, however you want to call them, are coming out. First off, they're very, very young a lot of times, and oftentimes we're seeing them in the beginning stages of their music careers. And I get it. It's because it's become a lot more accessible to make hip hop music. It's a lot easier to make nowadays versus back in the day where you had to like have a couple $1,000s to throw away to go to a studio with a bunch of expensive ass equipment, and you had to pay a guy that know how to work it. Versus now you could kind of get away with just getting a laptop and downloading some beats off of a YouTube page, and then if you rap over it and enough people like it and it's infectious enough, it goes viral and everybody consumes it. Now here's the thing, a lot of people are calling the hip hop these days, or the rap scene right now, they're calling it mumble rap, and it's basically just synonymous with the meaning of people who aren't really good at rapping. Like they're not in the classic sense of what people consider to be good at rapping. They don't usually have a lot of lyrical content. There's not a lot of thought put into the lyrics, and especially in today's internet age, a lot of what is being put out is being rushed. So you have a lot of artists that are what used to would maybe take all day or a week to perfect a song, they're going in and just kind of knocking in whatever lyrics they kind of want to put on it, and in like 15 minutes that's pretty much all they're going to put on that song. They send it, let the engineer do the magic to it, and then they flood the scenes with all this microwave music that they made. And it's at the point where the people who've been in the game for quite some time are a little bit flustered by this. Mostly it's because when they got in the game, or when the game first started, it took a lot more raw talent, hustle, and a lot of things. And I'm not gonna say hard work, because the people these days have to work hard just as much as anybody to be seen, or more so depending on how you want to look at it. But either way, I wouldn't say more hard work. It's just I would definitely say harder work in different areas as far as the aspects of what it takes to make it, or the quote unquote common definition of making it. And back when things first began, it's always a lot harder because you're still blazing the trail. And the sad thing, and it's hard to say, but times just definitely change. And it's hard. It's with a heavy heart that I say that, because being in my latter 20s, I've been alive for most of the life of hip hop. So in a way, you could say during, I came along during the teenage years of hip hop, and I've grown up into a man as it became, an adult, as far as, so to say, as a genre. You know what I mean? So I definitely have that nostalgic feeling of wishing that things kind of were the way they were when I was younger, being that I grew up in what a lot of people are starting to now call, the golden era of a lot of things, including cartoons, music, and just a lot of media in general. I definitely have my days where I wish that the music was more like that back then, but it's also because I have a lot of memories connected to that time. And the reason that I'm able to step back and understand these types of things is because, with me growing up in the 90s, I had access to a lot of other genres. Like, it wasn't like, that was the only music I listened to. I also, was peeping game on, another well-known music genre called rock and roll. And after a while, I started to realize that hip-hop's really just going through the same things right now that rock and roll was going through, in the late 80s and the early 90s. If anybody remembers the punk rock, when punk rock was like the music to listen to, I think it'd be very fair to analogize punk rock with mumble rap. In fact, punk rock was kind of defined as, a bunch of kids in the basement who couldn't really play that well. But because they got they were able to amass a large following, and they figured out how to do so, a lot of the times they would be propelled into the spotlight regardless of, talent or XYZ factors that a lot of older or, more established acts felt like, wasn't fair, because once again, they felt like they had to do so much more in order to get so far. And, if you look back, you realize it's really the same thing. There was a point where, jazz got to that same point, you know what I mean? A lot of genres really got to that point. Doo-wop, I stopped to think, because there are certain genres I don't really feel like went through a lot of those phases, or maybe because these genres have been along for so much longer, that I have been alive, maybe I don't have the perspective. So if there's any older Urban Nerd Weekly, listeners that can, put me on a little game and explain, where I may be falling off, feel free to drop a comment below the episode and let me know, all of what you think. But I say that because, pop and R&B kind of seem like they're immune to that, in that, pop and R&B kind of seem always the same amount of relevant, you know what I mean? Like, you can always drop a pop song or an R&B song, and the atmosphere is always kind of just right for it. And I think that, unless there's something happened a long time ago with pop music and R&B that I don't understand or know about, my limited history of music, I feel like, but the bigger ones, the ones that had like the craze and the era where they were just the music genre to make, I feel like they all went through these little cycles of where, the beginning was, it was new, it was fresh, and everybody kind of, was a little bit shy about liking it, but then there was that one song in that genre that just kind of took over the airwaves and people started liking it. It was a fresh new sound, and then boom, the genre began to elevate. You've seen countless biopics about the beginnings of rock and roll, and you're now starting to see a lot of pics about, biopics about rappers in the beginning of their careers, and how, documentaries about how hip hop was when it first started. And I'm telling you, there's countless analogies countless similarities in how both of these genres and many others have evolved. And I think, they all go through the same phases. Like, they start off like that, and then once it starts blowing up, it's usually the youth that like it a lot. And that makes a lot of sense, because a lot of times when you grow up listening to the genre of music that was popular amongst your parents. You know what I mean? Like, up until you're like in the high school, that high school age, middle school age, where you start to define yourself and become an individual, you pretty much just listen to whatever the adults in your family listen to. So if there's a lot of R&B played in your household, you probably listen to a ton of R&B And then when you got in high school, you started to listen to something different. Why? Because you were trying to individualize yourself. You wanted to be, you were trying to express yourself in your own way. And, I'm sure anybody that has come from a black household has definitely heard something along the lines of what you know about this. Like, I literally saw a tweet about this the other day. Like, and it was just crazy because, you know what I'm saying? The tweet literally said, matter of fact, it was from a buddy of mine. His name is, I can't remember if it was Courtney or Gary. Okay, so I'm gonna put their Twitter. I'm gonna put both of their. I'm gonna look this up after I finish recording the episode, and I'm gonna put their Twitter in the episode description. It's either a friend of mine named Courtney or a friend of mine named Gary. I can't remember which one of them it was on Twitter, but the quote was, your parents spend 18 years of your life playing a certain genre of music, and then you play that same genre of music on your own. The first thing they say is, "What you know about this?" Like, that is so true, So once you become of the age where you want to individualize yourself, you want to listen to something a little different, you want to listen to something a little fresher, a little newer, something that you can, you and collectively your generation can call their own. Like, even within genres, you can see as the different, cycles of the music progress. That's a part of what propels that progression, is that every new generation wants something a little different to individualize themselves from the generation before its music. Because after a while, you start hearing people saying, like, it's unoriginal. And then, that, because that's another part of the life cycle right there. The next generation that comes along and likes the music, they're looking for a little something different than the people who originally got the genre pumping one. But before that happens, I skipped over a cycle. It's the part where the genre becomes so popular amongst the youth that the previous generation begins to shun it. You know what I mean? They do anything, call it like that's not real music, or a lot of recycled quotes from people of older generations to the younger generation's musical taste. There's always some element they feel is missing in the new generation's taste that should be there but isn't. But it usually starts because that genre, that age group, that generation tried probably to make something that sounded like something that the previous generation would respect. Because initially, when you're an artist and you're young, you want to pay homage to those that came before you. And then the problem becomes, like, when the new generation starts popping, or it becomes popular, as they say, the older generation starts to get disgruntled, A, because they're losing relevance, and B, because things are starting to sound different, and what they do is lash out and call it unoriginal. And then the new generation responds by dramatically changing things so that it could sound more like their own. And then what happens is they say, oh, well, that's not real music because it doesn't have XYZ elements. And then what happens is the genre, every generation, a little bit of change happens. So now we're at the point, just like where rock and roll was during the punk rock times, we're at the mumble rap era where it's very accessible. The younger generation is taking over, and because they've so thirsted to individualize themselves from the generation of music fans of that genre before them, they're actually accepting, what some would consider less quality work just to call it their own. A good example of this, and I'll give it in hip hop and I'll give it in rock and roll as well. Hip-hop acts like Soulja Boy. When they came along, as much as y'all trash Soulja Boy, one thing you cannot take away from the guy is that he came in the game and did things so different. And not to mention, we were all fans of him. It's everybody that says Soulja Boy sucks or they have something bad to say about him. Like, I'm not riding his dick or nothing, but I was there, people. I saw all y'all niggas with rubber band necklaces. I saw all y'all niggas with y'all glasses with y'all name on them and shit. I saw all y'all niggas with oversized bathing ape hoodies and shit. You know what I mean? Like, I saw y'all, and then I saw y'all switch the game up when it became popular to hate on the guy. So when he came into the game and changed things, it made it more accessible. And, because he was, making songs basically in his living room, just like a lot of punk rock bands started making songs in their basement and recording them. Of course, it wasn't as high quality. It wasn't a studio-made production. But because the people of that generation wanted something to call their own, they liked it and they propelled it to a bigger surface. And you know what I'm saying? I can't remember the name of the punk rock group. I should have researched this fucking episode a lot more. But there's a punk rock group it came out around the time that punk rock became popular, and the same thing happened. They got backlash because their music wasn't top quality, blah, 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 blah. And, after it was all said and done, it really just became more about what the people wanted, and not to mention, because when punk rock came along, that was probably the first time that musical instruments were that accessible to people that young, and not musical instruments, rather recording equipment were accessible to somebody, that young, because of, price drops on things as time goes along. It just becomes easier to do. You know what I mean? So that's just my little piece on, what my perspective is on the life cycle of a music genre. And of course, you could tell by my rambling, I'm probably gonna come back to this episode, not come back to this episode, but we'll do a part 2 of this episode on a later date. But for now, we're gonna go ahead and wrap that up, and I'm gonna just remind you guys to please subscribe, like, and rate the show on your chosen podcasting platform, whether it be Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, whatever you use. Just thumbs up, stars, hearts, whatever you gotta press. Leave some comments. Let the show, we gotta make the show big, guys, because that's how you become one of the cool kids. What does every nerd want? That's to be one of the cool kids. Well, I'm gonna show you guys how to be one of the cool kids, but you got to follow me. So before I head out, we're gonna go ahead and ask today's question of the day, which is, what kind of music, if any, do you play while gaming? We've been talking about genres of music. A lot of, I like to listen to a lot of real, aggressive hip hop when I'm playing video games. But what is your favorite genre? I know I've asked who played, but what genre do you think is best suited for XYZ type of game? So if you want to say, you like to listen to death metal while you play Call of Duty, boom, that's the type of stuff I want to hear. Plus, that makes sense. But I got to get on up out of here, guys. My name is Space Was Here. See, because I was here, but now I'm